smell just like a fish. Yeah, gone with a dish. They smell just like a fish. Whoopee. Just like a fish. Well, I told her she was everything. I gave her my hook, line, but sink that fish. Oh, what a dish. She smelled just like a fish. I said, Arthur, whoa, we don't mind. Before the smoke reaches the sky, I'll be gone with a dish. It smells just like a fish. Yeah, gone with a dish. It smells just like a
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making this part of your day today. And oftentimes I feel that you can't really, you definitely can't quantify music and the people that make it. And we recently lost a guy who I never met before, but I had a chance to do an interview such as this one, telephonic radio interview with the great Gary Barone. And he was in a group on an album that, quite frankly, I didn't pay a lot of attention to when I had it the first couple of times. And then all of a sudden, with the recent passing of the late, great Gary Barone, I picked up this album, Fun Zone, again, and really started marinating in it. And actually, I've only gotten through side B. I haven't even turned it over to side A. It is so freaking hot and burning. And it is with these cats that, you think, right when you think that there was just like maybe 4 dozen studio cats, you realize that there maybe were like 7 dozen studio cast, because so many guys on this album were not that familiar. Well, they were familiar by name, but Wolfgang Meltz and Ben Benet and Jock Ellis and then this drummer who just was playing. I mean, every tune was different. There was folk, bluegrass. I mean, there was some funk in there, blues. There wasn't any bebop per se, but my guest was just swinging away, and I was obsessed with now tracking him down. And another friend who I got connected through by the great drummer Tony Brownigal connected me with Willie Ornelas, who's another unsung drummer.
Right.
And I said, hey, do you have any contact information on this cat? Because he's obviously still out there, but I need his info. And so Willie said, well, I'll see what I can do. I'm sure you're going to get to him before me, but he was wrong. He was able to get to him and sure enough, tracked him down. And, turns out that at around the same time that I, got into this Fun Zone album, I was out at an RV park watching my surrogate uncles, Danny Krieger and Steve Graham's Cooking the Groove. And Krieger was like, I used to be in a band with this guy. And I said, you just cannot, anyway, you can't script this stuff. It's all divine. And this guy's This guy's working hard at being retired. Don Poncher, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you so much, Jake. It's a pleasure to be here, man, and an honor. I really, hello.
Yeah, no, it is so beautiful to have you. I wanted to talk to you about, a lot of my shows become dedicated to rhythm, and rhythm is love. And one of the things that has been revelatory to me is that at least a lot of the recordings that I get off on from the 50s and the 60s, primarily jazz, But in any kind of music, the bass drums in the recording were not that prevalent. And a lot of that, if you go back to the earlier part of last century, a lot of that had to do with the shellac that they were recording on. The bass drum actually was too hard. Frequency would actually knock the needle off the shellac the wax they were recording on. So as a result, they never incorporated a bass drum in the recordings. Tim Tams and shakers and mainly the top of the kit. So I mean, I kind of wanted to know if you how you learned to really play melodically on the kit and use the top of the kit to keep time when you were first, just kind of getting yourself going in the world of music.
Well, when I first learned to play, I was taught by the great Hack O'Brien, which was Cubby O'Brien, the Mouseketeer's father. And Hack just taught us basically keep 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. That would be usually your left foot for your right-handed drummers, which I was left-handed, but I played right-handed because it was too hard to play a kit left-handed, too hard to get it.
Yeah.
Couldn't find anybody to teach me. I tried. So I went through the kit, and it was basically the bass drum's going to be on 1 and 3, and the backbeat will be on 2 and 4. And so basically when you learn to play swing music, I started with Dixieland. When you learn to play, it was boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck, 1 and 3. 1 and 3 on the bass drum. And then when they got into a little bit of hipper R&B beats, it was boom, chuck, ba-boom, chuck, boom, chuck, ba-boom, chuck, boom, chuck, ba-boom. This is kind of stuff that I kind of learned, and you kind of grew up with it, and then it just all of a sudden it applied. Like when we get to the 80s, we get to disco, and all of a sudden the bass drum is the most prevalent thing going boom, 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 boom.
Exactly.
So tells you exactly what's happened with the bass drum. It kind of, I guess, as the microphones got better, they were able to pick up the bass drum.
I mean, part of my issue today with, and I'm talking about modern recorded music, is that because we have so much technology, every part of the kit is mic'd. And the problem with that, in my mind, is that it doesn't leave any space in the music. Every piece of the drum you can hear, which, I mean, because we have the capabilities to do that, that's all well and good, but there's something about those incredible, I mean, I don't care if it was Kenny Clark or Tiny Khan or Max Roach or, I mean, the list goes on and on. Ed Thigpen, I mean, these guys were masters at dancing on the top of the kit. And with you, I mean, that whole Fun Zone album, even though it's not bebop, you're dancing all around on top of the kit. I mean, it's the 2 and the 4. I mean, to me, that's the magic of your generation, and it's so important. This is why my show is about promotion. It's not about preservation. It's about promotion of authentic music, and so you were taught that. But what in those Dixieland settings?
Then I heard a guy named Tony Williams.
Oh, wow.
I was 16, and I had just joined the union. On me and all my drummer pals would go down and hear Tony play live at Shelley's Manhole and sit about 2 feet in front of the frickin' drums until it was a beautiful thing. Until it was you were just swallowing drums as they go. And Tony played all over the top of the kit. So a lot of my influence, my rock influence, although I cleaned it up and made it more solid, but then Tony, I'd have to say, because Tony was a jazzy rock drummer. He wasn't really a rock drummer, but he played all over the freaking drums, man. He was everywhere, all over the toms, and I'm a great tom guy. I always loved toms. I love speaking with the toms. I love talking with toms.
Exactly, Poncher, exactly.
Yeah, I got way into that, and but Tony was... was the big guy when I was growing up, and I missed all that stuff, and it was great, but it didn't get me. It didn't really get me, and Tony got me. So that's about as far as I can go, deep as I can get into.
Well, no,
where
I mean, I'm curious about, first of all, I mean, this is why Poncher is so important to the JFS, is because Earl Palmer was out there. Earl Palmer gave Hal Blaine his break, rest in peace. Hal Blaine came.
I know Earl and I know Hal.
Exactly. No, and so I mean, and then Hal kind of gave Keltner his break, but I mean, Poncher's playing with Benet, Wolfgang. I mean, these are the cats. So, I mean, how did you? First of all, who were your buddies that you were going down there with? And then ultimately, before we get into anything else, I don't know how else to say this, Tom, but yeah, go ahead.
There's a basic drummer who you're missing, who was the great Jim Gordon.
I'm sorry, Jim is. I mean, someday I hope to talk to him in prison. I know he's.
I doubt if you ever will. That's what I hear. But Jim is a master, and I followed Jim around the studios, so I was next in line with Jim.
Wow.
And Jim did his Delaney and Bonnie thing. I was next in line with Delaney and Bonnie. He left me that, and then he was going to go on the road with Eric Clapton. He says, "No, I don't want to do that. You do it, Don." I went, "Okay."
Oh,
and then 2 weeks before we left, he said, "You know what? I'm going to do it." Okay.
Yeah. Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks, Jim. Really? I mean, that's when I met Bobby Whitlock. That's when I met all the guys. But Jim Gordon was the guy. He was a little strange, and he got worse and worse with the prolonged road gigs that he did. Just really took their toll on him until he just flipped. He totally flipped. And from what I hear, he don't want any help from anybody at all. But he was the guy I followed, and I got to say it. I got to give credit because I just idolized the guy, man.
Well, I mean, and a dear friend of mine who you probably know was also influenced by him. In fact, they showed up on a double drums date, and Gordon taught him how to tune his drums, and that's David Kemper.
Oh my God, yeah, I know Kemper too.
I love. I mean, you and Kemper. I mean, this is like these are like the heroes of our time. I mean, Poncher, Kemper, Gordon. I mean, yeah, you know. I mean, I remember how when I interviewed him, he talked about when Earl first came in and kind of handed it off to him. A lot of times, the producer on a session, if it wasn't a jingle or a commercial, things like that, like we weren't so genre heavy at that point. So Earl would say to or they'd say to Hal, play like something that has like a rock feel. I mean, rock was still kind of burgeoning at the time. But do you feel like in some ways, one reason that there was such a propensity of authenticity amongst studio albums at that time was just because we weren't so locked into labels, that it was kind of it was more a Duke Ellington style of music, whether people knew it or not. It wasn't like, oh, this is a jazz date or this is a rock date. You were, like you said, you took Tony Williams and made it a little bit more solid for records. But I'm trying to figure out how everybody got their own individual sound.
It's hard to imagine, but guys came up with their sound. And, I mean, basically they're going off a chart. And they might have a producer who's got an idea. And these producers have put together some of the best Steely Dan bands you've ever heard of, And they're just basically producers. And they're producing some of the best players around. And that's what they do, is they keep getting the best players. And they go, well, what do you feel here? What do you feel there? Do this or do that. And they suck the guys dry. It's perfect. It's exactly what you need to do in the studio world, is take everything you can. And I did a lot of sessions where they're just Kemper be set up, Al be set up, or these guys would be set up. Kind of what I like to do towards the end is stay set up. They'd get in the studio and set up. I did it towards the end of my career in theater. I started to do a classic play about John Lennon, and it was about his life. And I stayed set up for about 3 years. It was pretty sweet. I mean, every now and then and like when I worked with Jim Price, he'd bring us in and, all right, what do you feel? What do you hear? Here's the song. He'd lay it out on piano. well, maybe try this here, or maybe nothing. What do you feel? Or maybe don't play here. You know, there's so many options you were given. So it really happened in the magic of the session. I have to put it down to the engineers because I worked with some of the best engineers in the world, and there's nothing like it to have that guy behind you who can get your sound for you. Towards the end, I mean, in the last 20 years, yeah, it's pretty easy to get a great sound because I worked with Andrew Johns and those cats, man. They created the heavy rock sound. They created the sound of drums, you know. So it's interesting to just look at these cats and go, thank you.
I mean, this is. I mean, listen. You had everybody kind of got into these. You know, a good friend of mine who I just talked to recently because he was sort of hiding away about the fact that he was. Again, Barone was one of these guys who hit me to the fact that Ed Green was this Elvin-like jazz drummer in '68 before he went into the studios. I didn't even know that. You know, Keltner didn't even, you know, but you had Ed Green and Wilton Felder. Felder was the only one that could read Jamerson's bass parts that Gene Page would write out once Jamerson kind of went into a bad place. So they were a unit. Kunkel and Sklar were a unit.
Right.
So
Keltner took me to see Kunkel and Sklar. You got to see these guys.
Who Keltner did?
Keltner did, yeah.
Oh my!
I met Keltner during the Jim Price sessions. So that was Jim Price's album, his own album. Have you ever heard his stuff?
Honestly, I just could not wait. He's the cat with the Rolling Stones, right?
Yeah, he's the horn player with the Stones, trombone player, trumpet, and trombone.
Okay, so this is Sundigo's Traveling Orchestra. I mean, this is like, I mean, explain. Were you guys playing?
San Diego Traveling Orchestra. Jim Price is a classical trained trumpeter, and he seems to have a propensity for almost Broadway show style tune. And this album he wrote was just a masterful album. He used every major cat he could find in town with a trio that I was really locked in with, John Uribe, Dave Farrell, and myself. Both of them have passed on.
I was going to ask you about these cats. I mean, because I don't recognize. That's the point, Poncher. I don't recognize that you're like in this like ubiquitous zone of. I'm just is like a whole new area for me.
I think I lived on. I don't know.
You did. You clearly did.
I got a few friends who didn't make it, but those were major guys I was playing with at the time, and I think about it. It's like they're all gone. I think about the Love Band. They're all gone. I think American Hot Wax. Half of them are all gone. You know, it's just crazy stuff, man. Even Whitlock's album, man. I did Raw Velvet with Bobby Whitlock, and the Keith. Was it Ellerson, I believe, was his last
That's right, the organ player, yeah.
No, the bass player, and he passed on, man. So
wait, hold on. So I just want to be clear because I know Keltner is really close with, the drummer for the Stones. I can't remember his name now. Charlie Watts. And how did you? So were you playing double drums on this album, or Keltner was just at the session?
No, I just at the sessions. I mean, I played on which album?
On the Jim Price. You said you met Keltner at the Jim Price album. Because I don't see Keltner.
No, he wasn't. Keltner would come around and visit. He and a couple heavyweights would come and visit.
Oh boy, yeah.
We do sessions, and the Stones would come and visit. You know. I did one session with Jim, and Charlie came to visit. He says, "What are these drums? They're wood drums, Charlie." Oh, really nice. Why do they sound so nice? Because I hand tuned every drum. Oh, really? You know. And then I focused all the rims of each drum. I took a razor blade to the rim of each drum so it would act more like a timpani head. Wow. Oh, really? And after that, Charlie went out and got wood gretsch drums and played natural wood drums after that.
Oh, my.
Go figure. Jim Keltner's the one that got him. I actually got Keltner into the wood camcos. I got him into that.
You got Keltner into the wood camp? Because, I mean, this is important stuff.
Not Keltner. I mean Gordon. Sorry, not Keltner.
Oh, Jim Gordon.
I got Gordon into the drums he used with Delaney and Bonnie on the road. Those were from me. That was a turn on for me. I turned them into wood camco. Sort of masked sound of the drum, if you get where I'm coming from, as an engineer, geek kind of drummer. I go by vibrations. How much can the drum put out? How much can it give? And with the plastic coating around the shell of the drum, it was many times just stifled the entire drum, so your drum would be like "burk" instead of boom.
Yep.
So
I love this.
You get a choke, get that choke sound. So I got into wood drums. I did a cool thing I really need to talk about.
Go ahead.
I've never been able to talk about this, but I did an invention. My father was an inventor, and his brothers were inventors. And I invented something around 1964. I invented the sound dot drum head. Are you familiar with it?
Dude, the floor is yours. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, I invented it. That's all. I just invented it. I worked with my first wife. I invented it on the floor of our little guest house, and I was tired of going through drum heads. We couldn't afford a lot of drum heads, so I took second drum heads and cut out holes and circles and figured out which circle would be the best sound for the drum head, which would allow the most abuse to the head with putting out the most sound at the same time. And I came up with the sound dot. And then a pal of mine, who's not a pal of mine anymore, took one of the drum heads I gave him and took it over to Remo, and Remo then manufactured it, and I got screwed out of everything. That's the end of my story.
But this is okay. So okay, but this is important. This is why I do my show, because the truth is that will be transcribed and that will be in the record now. And you know what? Most people, maybe clearly you're not, thankfully not starving on the street. It was your invention, and that is in the record book. But Kemper talked about. I guess the guy named Ron Milo was the guy from Chess Cadet, was an engineer, and Kemper was an engineer for a while before he became a drummer, and he said that like someone like Glyn Johns, all they do is mic maybe one mic on the bass drum and then maybe one left and right overhead, and that was it. I mean, it was. Yeah. Can you talk about, like, I don't know. We let in with Vindicator with Arthur Lee, which is more like power rock. But I mean, generally speaking, can you talk about how your drums in the early '70s, when you were getting cooking, the way they mic'd your drums? Because that Fun Zone album is just breathing. The space is the music. That's what Miles said. And we seem to miss that today.
When we got into albums, I was basically a Neumann U87 or 67 on every drum. Snare, toms, kick, whatever they could put on a kick that I wouldn't kill, and whatever, But Neumann U87s and 67s across every tom, 4 toms. And a snare, maybe a nice dynamic non-condenser mic, for the snares, which is pretty popular, and maybe a condenser underneath the snare to get the bottom sensation. But then 2 to 3 overheads, usually 2 overheads and 1 on a ride. So you get 2 for the 2 crashes, your right and left crash, and then you get 1 specifically for your ride and 1 specifically for your hi-hat. So 4 overheads, 4 cymbal mics alone, and maybe 6 dynamic drum mics.
That's more than I thought. But it's the Neumann ones, though.
Yeah, I was pretty fussy about that stuff, and I had some good engineers that taught me. So Andrew Johns was a big Neumann fan. I had a lot of great engineers over the years, and they taught me these are the mics that get the real sound. If you don't hit the mic and you don't break it, those guys get mad when you break their mic. No matter how good you were, they aren't that good a friend anymore.
No, they're not. No.
You broke my Neumann. It's in the shop. Yeah. So, but then what's odd is then we go out, like, say we do Arthur gigs in the '70s, or I had 1 bass drum mic that was about a foot in front of the bass drum, and maybe 1 snare drum mic, and maybe 1 overhead, or maybe just 1 overhead and 1 in front of the kick, and that was it. And it was play as hard as you can possibly play, project as much as you can project. That's why I invented the drum heads. That's why I did the sound dot. Maybe 3,000 watt PAs, man, maybe 2 Shure speaker columns, and that was it for 30,000 people. I mean, it was crazy stuff, just underpowered.
I was going to say, so I mean, you were, just to be clear, you were like trying, when you had those setups live with Arthur, you had to increase volume through just sheer physical nature. You had to play as hard as you could. And,
Absolutely.
And then the invention you had, the sound dot, allowed you to not have to just bash, and you could still generate without necessarily having all the mics.
Well, without the mics, the sound off a two-headed tom is sort of book, unless you got a mic on it where you can hear it go boom. So it would go book. So I invented a head that with one head on the drum, you could hit the center of that head, and it was more like a timpani. Hitting a timpani, it was like a boom. So you get a big thunk out of the head and a big projection of volume, plus a huge projection of tone. And that's what I was after, was the tone.
The tone. Dude, the tone, it's just... I want to read you this quote. I want to read you this quote from the Vibes player, Mike Mainieri. He said...
Oh, yeah.
He said, it's from my interview with him, he said, I remember there were times when I played with Buddy Rich live where he would barely play the bass drum. When you think of Buddy, you think 4 on the floor, 4/4 on the floor on a bass drum. There would be times where he would just want to hear how the band sounded without him playing time on the bass drum. He would lean on the bass player, especially with ballads or medium tempo tunes. I remember we were playing Chicago for 3 or 4 nights. He had his foot on the hi-hat. He never played the hi-hat. He didn't play the hi-hat for 3 days. I thought I was going to go crazy. He set his foot on the hi-hat and he was just playing time on the cymbal. Of course, all these drummers came to hear Buddy Rich play a 15-minute solo. He hardly ever played the last set because there were so many drummers in the audience. Philly Joe would sit in, or Max Roach. If we were playing opposite Art Blakey, he would sit in. And I guess, you know, because whether it's Densmore that I've interviewed, Keltner, you know, not so much Lee Sklar or Kunkel, but I mean, most at Blaine, I mean, these guys were steeped in jazz. I mean, Densmore did the same thing you did, where he'd go sit next to Tony Williams' hi-hat, and then he'd go and try to shed that stuff at home, and it would never work out, but it was just pulsating, ridiculous rhythm. And did you, maybe not on a record, but did you play jazz at all for a while, like even in a band?
Quite a bit, yeah. I played. Actually, I played jazz with Barone.
Oh,
so we jammed a lot together. So we jammed a lot together. When we jammed, it was Jock on trombone, and then Gary on trumpet. And Gary could play drums too. He kicked butt on drums, and we'd jam on jazz stuff, jazz rock stuff.
Oh my! Stuff. Wait, what year was this?
You know, I couldn't tell you. My God,
it was
during the pre-Fun Zone years.
I mean, probably like
77, 78.
I'd say even possibly late 60s, maybe.
Not that early. Not that early.
Yeah, because he was going to Cal State. It's a different.
Oh yeah, no, he was the major. They were major jazz players, but we got together. We used to just go over to Barone's house and we just jam. And so there was like the fools that could hang together would jam together.
Oh
you
my
know?
God!
And that was so. There was usually we'd get 4 or 5 guys, and then it was a ongoing day after week jam session. Which, who's over here now? Who showed up now? You know, it was pretty crazy days, man. But good friends, really good buds, man, and spent a lot of time.
Well, I mean, this is I mean, this is like, I mean, is Jock Ellis still with us?
Yeah, Jock's around. I just talked to Jock.
Dude, he is the best. I mean, that dude was channeling like Fred Wesley and J.J. Johnson or something. I mean, the dude was out of his mind. You guys were.
Jock just told me. He says, "Oh, how are you doing? You still playing?" And I said, "No, it's problems." And he goes, "Well, man, I'm playing better than ever."
Well, no, I don't mean to laugh because this is kind of what I wanted to talk. This is a little bit just going off into a different field, but I just came back from New York on assignment, and you know, I was feeling a lot of angst. Got to see Lenny White play, and that was thrilling.
Oh, wow.
And you know, and I just, the last night I was there, I saw this young drummer Joe Russo, and he really, they were playing this sort of modal neo-bop, as Barone said, but also very rock-oriented, funky stuff. And I mean, I want to ask you how hard it is, just from a psychological point of view, that you can't play anymore, because rhythm, for me, is a healing component. I walked out of there. I walked out of that weekend in New York. Up till that last Sunday night gig, I was not in great shape. But after seeing Lenny White and then seeing this younger group, I'm floating on air now for a few days, and it's so cathartic. And I just wonder about how music has healed you, and how hard it is, and what it's like for you now to not be able to play.
Well, I broke my back in like 70s, so I've basically been playing with a broken back and bad spinal column for years, and I just worked my way through it and said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to keep playing. So I played through everything in my career. I played through with a broken back, except the early on stuff, the very early on stuff. So I pretty much, Whitlock, that broken back, on the road with him, broken back. You know, maybe a pain pill a day, maybe 2 a day. So what?
Right.
You know, nothing deal. And I made it all the way up until I was doing this last 6 years of this Broadway show, where I stayed set up. And it was just sweet because I could play the set. I might. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, somebody's calling me, idiot.
It's all right. Yeah, no, I mean, but I mean that and you weren't because it was.
I play. Well, you like, how long can I do this? And then I just get hyped up, and I was always into vitamins and good ginseng and keep me going, and you know, not the healthiest food always, but good stuff to keep me going. Not drugs, but good stuff, you know, good healthy stuff.
Sure.
And you know, I fought it as long as I could, and then finally towards the end, I had like a big relapse. My right knee went out. That's my bass drum leg. I've had my bass drum foot's gone out on me a couple times through just other situations I've had. So gout, I had gout. That took out my right foot for about half a year, you know. And so I've been through stuff where I've just been fighting all my life. And finally, it just got to where, can I put up with that much pain anymore? Because I used to ice my back on the way to the show and ice my back on the way home.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
That's intense. But I made sure I played great.
Well, you know, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you were smart because you didn't. Thank God you didn't get hooked on, you know, painkillers, or you know, get yourself into a situation where, you know.
Right. I've had my share, but it's all well within. The doctors look at me and look at my situation and go like, it's not so bad. You know,
No.
You're doing okay. I'm not abusing myself now, so that's important. But it got to where my spine fused itself together. A couple vertebrae fused themselves together. I've got spurs all over the place. I broke my back 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I've got a real messy situation because of that. And it's just, I can get, you know, injections to relieve some of the pain, but those are only good for a limited amount of time too. So it's like, how much can you put up with? You've got to be dependable when you're on the job. When you're a drummer, my God, you've got to be dependable. I can't be dependable anymore. So coming from that aspect, it doesn't hurt that bad to go, no. But if I want to play the pity party, I'm going like, yeah, it's killing me not to play. Are you kidding? What could I be doing?
I don't think it's the pity party. I think it's incredibly. I think that music, like I just told you, I mean, I can come back and I can be with my daughters and just be in a really, really levitated state, because rhythm is just, and that's why I have a hard time with anything. Well, it's just nice to see human beings playing rhythm, and I think that's one of the humbling things about modern music is just the lack of authenticity, the lack of the heartbeat in modern rhythm. In studio recordings now, you get drum machines. But
it's stuff. It's really tough. You know, I watched it. It started in the 70s. It hit really hard in the 80s, and damn it, it came back. It's on every track now. You know, the drummers that go out and play live now, I did it too. It has to be that perfect. And, you know, studio tracks, that's the way they got. They also got into where I want to use this guy on bass, this guy on drums. And, well, they can't play together. That's okay. We'll mail the tracks to them. And they can do it now. You know, they can do it now. And they're so good. The Cats are so good, and their styles are so perfect that they're accepted. I mean, they're playing hits. You know, mail me the song you want me to make your hit. You know, I've got a friend of mine, Jake Graydon. You ever do an interview with him?
Dude, he's been hiding from me, man. He knows. Yeah. No, I haven't. I mean, he and my younger daughter's name is Asia, and I think he played the solo on that tune.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I played with Jay for years, man, and when he was just learning to record at his studios in North Hollywood, and we'd play with just some monster players. And how do you mic drums? How do you mic the guitar? How do we do this? How do we do that, man? Old reel-to-reel 2-track, 4-track. It was a big deal when we finally got an 8-track. Oh, my God. I think a 4-track was a big deal, actually.
Well,
yeah.
You know, listen, we have a game on this program called Name That Tune. And so let's put this song in for Don Poncher, and then we'll come back and break it down, okay?
Okay.
I'm satisfied with your love, honey, you're all that I need. Don't you take your love from me. I'm nothing without you. I can't do anything right. Don't you take your love from me. Don't you hear me call me? I'll try hard to please you. Honey, my love, oh so true. Don't you take your love from me. Don't you hear me call me? I've been alone, lost so long, honey, it's gonna take time for me to change. Don't you take your love from me. Oh yeah. Don't you take your love from me. Don't you hear me calling you, baby? Take your love from me. Begging on my knees now.
All right, Mr. Poncher, what do you got for us?
Well, that was some pretty swell 70s stuff. I'd say a San Francisco group. I couldn't tell you who it is. I really couldn't.
Well, it was you're 100%. That was a member of the Sir Douglas Quintet. You on drums, Augie Myers.
But that was Augie? Oh, my God.
Don't you take your love from me. Augie's Western Head Music and Sir Douglas Quintet. So how did that come about? I mean, was that just the phone rang and you said we need you on a, I mean, how did you wind up in that?
No, the very first band that I really did an album with, which was Blue Mountain Eagle. Yeah. Augie Myers was Augie and DJ, the guitar player, one of the 3 guitar players, lived on the same property. So I met Augie Myers and his beautiful wife and all the kids and the country life. Man, I met them all then. I was a city boy. But I met them then, and, you know, we hit it off. I haven't heard anything we played together. That's the first thing I've heard. The drums is pretty good. I recognize the bass lines. It really sounded like San Francisco. That was Augie. Wow.
Yeah, well, wow. I mean, who I don't even know who that. This is what I'm saying. Is I don't even know. I mean, I'm looking at Blue Mountain Eagle, for instance. First of all, is the guitar player Bob Jones, was he from the Wee Five?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at.
He passed away a couple of years ago, but no, I don't.
You know who I'm talking about, right? Because I did an interview with Bob. Yeah. He passed away, so it's like Joe Newman on guitar. This was the Blue Mountain group. Poncher on drums and vocal. You were singing in this. I got to get a hold of this album immediately. I've never even heard this album.
I wrote 2 tunes. I actually wrote 2 tunes.
Are you kidding me?
Holy. Vocals on, yeah. Loveless Lives, I wrote that, and there's another one on there. I forget what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to read off. Let's see, Loveless Lives by Poncher and No Regrets.
No Regrets, that's right.
So who were? I mean, were these Topanga Canyon cats? Who were these? You talking about the country life? Who was Augie Myers? I don't even know who this cat was.
I had no idea. I had no idea when I met him. It was like, these guys go out with Willie Nelson. They're Willie freaks. And BJ ended up on Willie's bus, man. He went out with Willie.
Oh.
He did it. So it's just, they're country boys. I don't know how I ever met them. I can't remember how I first got it with Blue Mountain Eagle. I can't remember the first contact. It must have been David Price. He would know. He remembers all the stories. I can't.
Well, Poncher, this is a pocket of our history that is essential. I mean, I can't believe how cathartic this is. Going back to Gordon, do you remember the first session you got called for in Hollywood, in L.A.?
No.
I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, you gave Gordon gave you the Delaney and Bonnie gig, or do you remember one of those first times when you got called? Because I mean, your credits start with this Blue Mountain Eagle, but I think that it had to have started before that.
Basically, I played country music when I was like 13, 14 years old, and I had a studio in North Hollywood that I could go down and play, and they'd love to have me play. So I learned to play country music and keep my fills simple and learn to play good time, that it was important. And then I went out, I did a bunch of country gigs. I wonder if I did Tex Williams, man, Smoke That Cigarette.
Whoa. What year was that? I got to look that up immediately.
That was way back there, man.
Tex Williams, Smoke That Cigarette?
Smoke That Cigarette.
Oh,
Tex
my
Williams.
God.
I played with them about 3 years after that song was a hit. So. But
you were road dogging it. You weren't in the studio doing that.
No, I did some country sessions, but most of it, road stuff. With Tex, it was all road. Tex, it was load up the station wagon and the trailer, and away we go.
Did you wind up, at that time, it was just this. I mean, I remember I've done several interviews with Johnny McLaughlin, and they were on bills with Black Sabbath, and I mean, it was so. I mean, I remember talking to Tootie Heath, and when Herbie had the Fat Albert Rotunda band, they closed for Iron Butterfly. I'm like, this is insane.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like, what was the weirdest bill when you were playing these country gigs that you wound up on? I mean, did you play the Fillmore? Did you play any of these psychedelic halls, or what was the strangest bill with the other cats that you wound up on?
For country gig?
Just any gig, because what I love is this idea that, like, there are all these there's no touring circuit anymore, as you know, and
right.
Nothing viable really, and unless you're just like a huge name, and at that time, because of guys like Bill Graham, you'd have the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, the Sons of Champlin, and Arthur Lee and Love. I mean, it was very possible that all three of those acts would wind up on the same bill, and I'm just curious about. And you go to a jazz festival today, and I'm not even sure if they have jazz in anywhere in the festival. So labels have kind of perverted music, because you're bringing in what people think jazz is?
Bobby Whitlock and Stevie Wonder. That was kind of weird.
Well, that is insane.
That was the Fillmore East. That was weird.
Why was why was it weird? Tell me. I like weird, man.
Because, well, they had to go on. They used my set. His guys used my set. So my drums are tuned, and you go like, I sure like the sound of them drums. I sure like the sound of them drums. So, well, thank you, Stevie, very much, man. Appreciate that, man. You're like one of my idols, you know. Well, that's cool, you know. And then it goes on, and so he's always singing to all his gals. He's singing to all his back folk. And it's, I hear you in the dressing room, and I'm coming out to you right now. And he'd go nuts on these folks, man. And so Bobby was just a normal, we're rock and rollers, and Stevie was almost international, you know.
Absolutely. No, that is sweet. I mean, so you closed for them or opened for them?
We opened for them.
Well, I mean, that's cool. I mean, they
did break my bass drum head, and they replaced.
They did break. They broke it, and then they replaced it.
They broke it. He broke it on his watch.
I was just saying, you know, it's interesting because I remember Kirk Lightsey from Detroit, just the most ridiculous jazz player. I mean, when Pistol and Benny Benjamin and those guys, they couldn't get a groove together. They'd just call little Stevie Wonder at 10 years old, and he'd come down and figure it out on the drums. But he was playing keyboards and stuff, so you don't remember who the drummer was that was playing that gig?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was great. Damn, they're all good musicians traveling with him. It was just so cool to hear him sing to his background singers in the dressing rooms and stuff.
Oh, man.
Couldn't turn around and look at him, so he'd sing to them. It was really awesome, man. It was really kind of nothing ever quite hit me like that. Nobody's ever done that around me before.
No, this is why it's so, because I mean that's the goal of my, just to extract stories like that, because I mean the guy's still doing it, and one of the reasons that in my mind Stevie and I'm not a freak of his, but I mean I respect him to no end, is that he never puts out a set list. He never tells his guys, everybody needs to know the entire songbook, and he'll call tunes and you just got to hit it. And I recognize, with like the Lennon play, your back is what it is. You were able to set up your kit, but how do you stay engaged on a Formula Trip gig? Because you had to be playing the same show every night pretty much. I mean, and to me, my whole philosophy with music is that, and it's very much a Grateful Dead philosophy, and it doesn't fit into all musics, but it really should be never play the same song the same way once. And I would like you to talk to cats out there about how you can still find spirit and soul and authenticity in a Formula gig, because a lot of my generation at 41 and younger are very hung up on playing the tunes exactly like they are on the album. And sometimes it's just annoying because, they crunch this thing into a 3 or 4 minute track, and you want the lead guitar player to play as many bars as he wants.
Well, we would come playing Lennon's music. We would come as close to the track as possible, but then during the varied performances of the different songs, I mean, just the space between the beats might be a little bit different at 1 minute, or just a groove that you feel on, and you might play a fill that's part of that scene, but not written and not played on the album. But you may actually find a fill, or on guitar you might find a fill, a lick that's very Beatlesque or very Ringo-esque. I found out since Ringo was a left-handed chap, I'm a left-handed boy, and playing right-handed, I play right-handed, and he's got some physical handicaps, so I got mine, but I figured I could find the space he played in, and that space is what made people excited. It still didn't mean that I wouldn't do a fancy fill towards an ending and hear people go, oh, wow, because they didn't expect that, Because
right.
in the space of the song. So, but that's one of the things I would play for is I want to hear that. I want to hear that out of the audience. I want to feel that. So it would like play. Can you feel me? I mean, it's kind of play within that groove of the tune, but still not play the tune exactly, but still play it exactly. It's there's always a room for a little bit of rooms, a little space for growth in there that I've always found, and I played 3 or 4 different drummers. It was hard to play those grooves, and to play the whole show, I'm playing 4 or 5 different drummers. I became one drummer playing the show. I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
Yeah, exactly, it happened. It's just so unbelievable. I mean, can you, one thing about the Fun Zone record is, Tedesco gets all the publicity, and rightfully so, and Dennis Bootymer, who I've interviewed, I love that cat so much, and there were just, and I'm leaving cats out, Johnny. I mean, there were so many great studio guitar players, but I mean,
Yeah.
what can you give me a good Ben Benet story? Because I feel like that guy must have played burning live music. His guitar playing on that studio album is burning. It is like I've never heard any,
Yeah.
and I was like, dude, I need to talk to Poncher about Benet, dude.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Losing Ben was tough. I have a hard time hearing that album and hearing his.
What was it about? Tell me a little bit. Tell me about him.
Ben was priming me for the studios. Ben was getting me ready for anybody's session. He would come in and go. He'd hire me for these demos, and so they weren't master sessions; they were demo sessions. They paid a third, but still, he'd come in and he'd go, "Oh, here's this tune. Wait a minute, let me sit down for a minute." And he'd take a piece of notebook paper, music paper, write out a chart, write out a second chart, be like, "Here, this is what we're doing," and it was absolutely correct. He heard the whole thing. When we did the Fun Zone thing, it was like, "No, leave this space here. You don't want to be doing that." Just little hints every now and then. And then when he did his solo, that wasn't live. That was overdubbed, of course. But, I mean, it was just masterful. I think that was a first or second take. He just had it wired. He produced that album.
He did? Oh, my. Dude, he is. Yeah, it was all in his head, is what you're saying.
Yeah, Benet was the producer. He really was.
God. So, wait, do you know about it? Like, did he. I know I can just look it up, but was he like. I mean, you were gigging around West Hollywood and maybe in different circles, but I mean, was he part of a live band at any point that you know of?
No, just the Fun Zone stuff that I was working with. No. Sessions. He was doing a lot of sessions, man. He worked a bunch.
And how did he pass away?
It's sort of a mystery. They found his body out in the desert.
One
of those.
Oh, man.
One of a mystery. Trunk of his car open and empty. I don't know.
And in some ways, you felt like he was. I'm trying to figure, like, grooming you for being a studio drummer in some ways.
That I could have been. Yeah, he really was. He really knew what to do. He knew exactly what to say to get me to do the right thing. Some people can tell you something and you take offense. Some people can tell you and you just don't get it. And some people really get you.
I love it.
And they help you. And he was one of those cats, man. He was a beautiful, beautiful cat, man. Really, really miss him. Between him and McIntyre.
What, man, dude? I mean, dude, I can't.
That was my career, man. I was done. I finished. Everything was up to then. I think I did Robbie Krieger's album, Redshift. After that, I didn't do much after Hot Wax. I did American Hot Wax. But after Fun Zone, I think I did Hot Wax and Redshift, and I don't think I've done anything but other group projects and stuff that are just local casual stuff. Not that much traveling, except for the play I did the Just Imagine that we got to go to Chile. That was fun. That was really bizarre to watch him read Just Imagine words up on the screen in Chile. Yeah,
I
We
mean,
had some good times.
like, with how did that like? I mean, I've never. I mean, again, I am not a musician. I am a rogue journalist who's tracking sociology through humanity and authenticity, like musicians. And I like I just, I've interviewed Durgy, Sklar multiple times, Korchmar, Kunkel. I've I've interviewed Kemper. I've interviewed so many freaking guys, and then just
I'll tell you, roster is huge.
the rosters, it just never ends. But the point is, then I think that, well, then something like Gary passing away, which is I don't want to say tragic, because I think Gary actually is a model for overcoming adversity, and he's a really amazing player on top of that.
Right.
And he lived a pretty hardy life. It wasn't like a Benet situation. So, but I'm telling you, man, I'm in a hypnotic state on side B of this album. I can't stop listening to McIntyre's voice. I can't stop listening to Benet. And I mean, Wolfgang was he playing electric on that album? I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, that's an electric. That's an electric. You bet.
When did you cross? I mean, Wolfgang Melt's one of the nastiest players. When and
I
how?
think Jock brought him in. You know, Jock was like, and we got this bass player, Wolfgang. Okay. Because we all showed up at McIntyre's house. I remember McIntyre's house in his studio, and we were all like trying to play a couple of the tunes, and they'd play some demos for us, and then we'd try and play the demos, and it worked out really well. I mean, I passed the audition. It was fun, really fun, and good players and everything. But they brought Wolfie in. They knew him. That's through Jock and Gary, I think, really. Tim maybe, but I don't think so. I think Tim had just met Wolfie too.
I mean,
Seemed like it.
Can you just? I know you went for the rehearsal. You went for the rehearsal, whatever. You got the gig, but I mean, what was the? Because I guess my larger point was that, like, I've heard these session cats all together, playing. In the record industry, you had the Section actually was able to create their own albums, and there was this band with David Foster before he became a millionaire, with Keltner and Korchmar and called Attitudes, and then Fun Zone. And it's like, can you talk about like who's the brainchild and what it was like? Was McIntyre just horny to play music? Or, it's just like, because he was like an actor and voiceover guy.
Yeah, he was an actor and voiceovers, and I got a call from Jock Ellis, and I'd played with Jock doing many different local groups and casual bands and funk bands and just all sorts of gigs around town. And he said he had this guy Tim McIntyre. I said, who's that? So an actor guy. Oh, okay. I played with a lot of actors. All right, no problem. So come over and try this thing out. And it was just come over and try it out. There's me and Gary, and then when I got over there, I met John Rubinstein. Wolfgang, I think Wolfgang was right at the first rehearsals. I think he was right in the beginning. Benet was not. Took a while. Took a bit to get Benet.
Took a bit to get Benet over. Dude, I love this. Is my. I'm just obsessed with. Wait, Jock. What? I mean, Jock Ellis. I mean,
come on, man. This will be great. Jock's like, you're gonna like the band, man. You're gonna like it. I gotta tell you, the thing that made us realize we were meant for each other is the first song on side 2. It's called Bad Girl.
Oh my God, dude, it's my favorite freaking tune, man.
Okay, there's the reprise to Bad Girl, Daddy, 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 won't you leave me alone?
Yeah.
When we got to that part and we all played it and we played it together and felt each other, that was it. We had the gig.
Dude, and something that's crazy, because we would just be blasting that all over the place today. There are none of those tracks on YouTube. None.
No, that's because we didn't live that long.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of people that would just upload it off. They would rip it off the. I'm just shocked that the LP hasn't been ripped up to YouTube yet. It's
we never got out to play for the LP. We never got out to do the tour for the LP. There was no shows. No shows.
And yeah, it was on a very weird label. I don't even know what it was, like First Avenue or something. I don't even know what the name of the label was, but it was like
First Artist. Yeah, First Artist was a big album, but it went under pretty quick. But it was a major dude in there, a major player, and he took us. Who was the guy, man? It was the guy Gary. It was a Gary something.
Hold on, I'll look it up right now. I mean, Daddy, 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 won't you leave me alone? I mean, that this is like the greatest. I mean, it's really on. And I guess part of it is just like it's not. It's just like it's not just like instrumental and people wanking it. It's like there's amazing vocals and like it's. So out of that whole group, you're saying Wolfgang's still around in Texas. Jock's cooking, and then this the engineer is Joe Sidor.
Joe didn't make it, I believe.
But he was the engineer. I'm just trying to find the back.
Oh, no, Joe Sidor is good. Now Joe Sidor was all right. He's all right. He made it.
I mean, McIntyre was like bluegrass, Appalachian, country. It had like a little bit of slickness of Hollywood, but not that much. And you were just playing like Dixieland funk. I don't even know what it was. I mean, I cannot believe I overlooked, because I used to have the album and I was like, I don't know these. Who are these cats? And then Barone passed away, and the album took on this whole new significance to me. I'm like, this is insane, man. But you're really, I mean, it obviously you had the injury, but which is critical. But with Benet and McIntyre, I mean, fundamentally, did your career take a shift after those guys passed away?
Yes. I never did another band that did an album again. That was it.
Wow.
That was the end of my let's play for the band. That fucking shit's dead. Sorry.
No, man, that's what I wanted to, because we've been cooking here for 63 minutes. We're going to have to do set 2 as soon as possible. But I just wanted to ask you, as we wrap part 1 here, what you just said, that shit is dead. But can you talk about, in your mind...
Going out and being a band in the old days, in my day...
No. This is the question. This is the question. This is not about preservation. This is about promotion.
No.
The question is, how has the significance of music changed in our culture?
Yes, he did. He changed me. My God. Boom, 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 blah, boom. Hell. Holy cow. Hell Blaine. That hurt when he passed.
No. Yeah, no. Well, no. I mean, how? No, I was going to just ask you generally because, I mean, I'm talking. I wasn't around. I wasn't even birthed till '78. But if I was in these live shows, to me, it was like an experience. It was all about the music. Today, you go, and a lot of times it's all the extrasensory stuff. A lot of music now is made for multitasking or pacification. So my question for you, for Don Poncher, is how has the significance of music changed in our culture?
Whew, that's a good one.
Take your time.
To me, it's gotten a lot lighter.
What does that mean?
To me, there's good, I'm going to say good white pop music, and it's gotten frivolous and lighter and means less than it ever has before in my life. Music used to mean something. A band used to really mean something. Now it's all mastered by the big dollar and the big record company and their big dollars and their productions, and they don't want bands anymore. They don't want you to be. They don't want you to be sort of true to your soul. It's kind of like go with the. I mean that's as good as I could really get it. It's just gotten a lot lighter to where it's just for the buck. It always was for the buck, but I mean there was some really talented stuff where guys weren't getting paid and they were putting it out. That doesn't happen now. I hear music out there that I hardly even call music. And they're getting mega bucks. I can't believe it.
Well, that's what we know. My first book, which I don't know if I sent you or not, but one of the cats in it is David Spinoza, and he said that when an album was pressed back in this time that we're talking about, it was actually had to be really good music. I mean, you couldn't fake it. I mean, now what's considered pop, what they're trotting out as pop music, there's a lot of cats that really can't even perform live. So just because they look a certain way or they have a certain amount of Twitter followers, the singer can say, "How did I sound?" The engineer said, "Terrible. We can fix it. Come on up." And it's like, what the? Are you kidding me? So I mean, but I mean, you would say that you think music now, before it was made for burning significance and social consciousness, sort of a movement, as opposed to, even though the bean counters were making money, they stayed counting the beans. Now it almost seems like the bean counters have gotten involved with the actual making of the music, and in essence, it's for pacification, it's for fluff, and I guess, man, my daughters are not going to have a problem with this because they're having authentic music blasted into their ears every day. But
that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. That's the best you can do for our kids, is playing the good old stuff. Because they'll come back at you going like, "Did you hear this? This artist named Jimi Hendrix. Wow."
Well, I don't even, you know what it is? You know what it is, Don? I also think, and I can say this from my travels over the last couple of years because I've taken the Jake Feinberg Show on the road, is that there are so many great musicians around. The problem is, we are saturated with material, and a lot of labels, I don't care if it was Elektra, if it was Norman Granz, if it was Oscar Orrin Keepnews, Ahmet Ertegun, a lot of those cats would say, well, yeah, okay, these guys don't have a huge portfolio. They don't have to actually have a portfolio at all, but I believe that their music is what my label stands for. So they got it out there. And today, those cats who are playing that music can't even get above the din of Velveeta, light pop. I mean, and that's really the issue, because it really only is now about the bottom line. It has the music could be horrendous, but no dynamics either.
When I signed our deal to Hatco for Blue Mountain Eagle in the early 70s, I met Ahmet Ertegun at the Beverly Hills Hotel in a bungalow. The whole band was taken to him and his brother. They were very respectful. They shook our hands. They said they really liked what we were doing. They really liked our music. They wanted to do an album with us. And I said, "Ahmet, you're a cool guy. What sign are you?" He goes, "I'm a Leo." I said, "I'm a Leo too." So I loved Ahmet, man. We just got along, and that's when they were looking for the music. Now it's like they're looking for a look or a line, or it's not all music anymore. It's just not. And a lot of it's how many, like you said, how many Twitter followers you got, how many YouTube guys you got, how many followers you got. We could never do anything like that. It's an amazing opportunity, but it's let in some real non-talent, I'm afraid. And there are people out there that'll just keep it a good thing until it turns bad, and that's kind of happened, I mean, there's different genres of music, and the hip-hop music and that stuff, I got to say, has been getting better, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, I can kind of listen to it and figure it out now. Of course, they've bombarded me with hip-hop, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, I mean, I'm hearing these rolls, drum. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I believe me, it's just nothing like, you just know that. I mean, like you said before, well, just email me your solos and we'll just cut and paste them. Right. And that is not going. I don't care how good the solo is. It's not like getting cats in a room. And you just don't do that anymore because it's cost prohibitive. And if it's all about cost prohibitive, then you're just going to be left with a lack of authentic music. I just, I also believe that music is made for dancing. I don't care really what people say. Well, some music is made for listening. I just think that I don't care if it's odd metered music. I just think that you got to let the body dance. And we've also just over time, especially as it relates to improvisational instrumental music, it's become very classicalized, and we've learned to sit and stare at somebody's facility wanking around as opposed to actually having a real conversation. I mean, these are things that I need to keep digging deeper on because, long after we're gone, this stuff will come back. I just hope it doesn't take a whole complete collapse of civilization to do it. Unfortunately, we are on the verge of something. We're just not in a good place right now, and the music is a direct reflection of that.
Yeah, the music's not helping. Usually when it needs to be, it'll come out and help. But
well, that's what some of the older cats would say. Even conga players that played with Art Blakey that I've interviewed, they said in the past, through it all, even through the roughest times, the music always carried people through, but not today, and that's the problem. And the other issue is the fact that, not that you guys were making boku bucks, but you know what? A couple of jingle sessions, couple of session calls, you guys could get ahead. You guys get ahead a little bit. And today, a band, they have a packed house, and you think they're raking in some decent dough, and by the time they pay the lawyers and the managers and the this and the lighting, they're not, and then they have to pour everything else into their next production or their next recording. They don't have much, and you can't. I mean, the cost of living's insane now. So it's a cry, and I think it speaks to. Well, the other question, real quick, is a musician today still seen as a viable profession, or is music a musician's gift to the world today?
I think it's a gift.
Oh,
I'm going to go with gift.
That's the way the business people look at it. Is you can play for the door, you can pay to play, but because music is unquantifiable, we can't. That's the issue with a lot of my friends and a lot of the people that I support playing music is that, they'll tell you the music chose them, right? I mean, it's just you have no other choice. But the problem is today, you can't even get behind. You're just it's worth it. And then at the same time, it's not. And I see incredibly gifted people, drowning in the fact that they can't get ahead, and they're fighting tooth and nail just to get their bandmates paid, and there's just something fundamentally, the greed factor is there, but,
there's fantastic musicians, and they may be over 40 now, not able to go on the road and do all that stuff and get abused that way, but they're ready to do the club gigs and stuff, and they're trying to get paid. They're still paying us like it's 1970, I got to tell you.
No, actually, I don't know if you know the great drummer George Marsh, but he's a dear friend of mine. No. And he said, jazzers, basically the pay has not changed since 1984.
Right, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same as 84, but the cost of living has gone 120% higher.
It's exactly the same. It's $100 a night. I swear to God. Whether you do one set, you play a show, it's like all this weird stuff going on because there's a bunch of people out there just plugging up the industry, just plugging it up with, I figure, not really that talented, not that polished, And then the whole thing where they're going with the R&B, and I don't know, we can't quite get into that. It's like if you're white, you're not going to fit in the R&B network, so that I think a lot of their back musicians are white cats, that's just Ed Green. Played all the famous stuff, man. Four on the floor, Ed.
Dude, Ed Green, man.
White boy.
Dude, Ed Green, man. Dude, I can.
Jake Braden introduced me to Ed Green and said, "Yeah, man, this cat four on the floor, yeah."
Well, listen, it felt good because, how could it not feel good with David T. Walker and Wilton Felder? So it's just like.
Right.
Anyway, Poncher, it's just, I hope this was a ball, man. I'm going to be transcribing a lot of these stories, blasting them out on new media, trying to drive content and consciousness. And let's just set up a time. I hope you had a good, let's do set 2 soon.
Yeah, all right. Very nice, man. Really enjoyed it.
And I'm going to be reaching out. If you can connect me with Jock, I'd love to catch a hang with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk to him and see what he wants to do.
All right. Much love, Poncher. I'll get you a copy of this later on today. And keep your spirits, man. It's
You bet.
all right, man.
You bet. Thank you, Jake.
All right. Be cool, man. Be cool.
All right.
Later.
All the best.
Yeah, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, another dream defined. Don Poncher. That's it for the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, I've been riding miles all day. Say I'm a high Texas rider. Yes, I've been riding miles all day.